So let's look at my last business and the lessons that came from that for selling a business to a multinational corporation. Distinction Software was started with a dozen people that we took out of our previous acquirer. We were in Atlanta at the time. We had built up 12 to 15 years of experience in process manufacturing applications, but we saw a gap in the market in supply chain optimization for process manufacturing, and in particular the sector that we had worked in, which was the high volume, low value consumer packaged goods. There really wasn't an acceptable supply chain solution in that area. We started working in sales forecasting and then inventory planning, and then a small company called Red Pepper were bought by Peoplesoft for 26 times revenue, and we realised we were in a hot market and we could raise venture capital. And so we raised $2 million for 20% of the equity of the business, which at the time was probably only doing $500,000 turnover and perhaps $50,000 in net profit. We used the venture capital money to flesh out the product, to finish off the supply chain solution. So we added distribution planning, capacity planning, and production scheduling. We were able then to sell that very successfully into a number of subsidiaries of large multinational consumer packaged goods manufacturers. But at the end of about 5 years, we were still only $2 million revenue, 30 staff, and about 20 customers, but we did have a completed product that was referenceable and on customer sites. At that time, supply chain optimization was becoming an essential component for large-scale enterprise applications. And the big boys, Oracle and Peoplesoft and JD Edwards, SAP, all wanted to be in that market, but none of them had really their own solution. And one day SAP announced a program to develop its own solution, and we found that we immediately lost all of our SAP prospects. Within 2 months, Oracle and Peoplesoft and JD Edwards and Barn all announced programs, and we quickly lost our prospects in those markets. And so here we were with 30 staff, doing about $2 million revenue and no future prospects. And so we realised that we either had to cut back to 5 people and simply do consulting and wait for another day, or sell the business. We decided to sell the business. And in the day that I made that decision and discussed it with the venture capital firm, I made 8 phone calls and I had 8 interested buyers. These were competitors of ours. They were people in the industry selling complementary products, or they were strategic partners. But they all recognised that we had a product and very few people did. We were then approached by Peoplesoft, who expressed an interest in distributing the product, and that discussion quickly turned into an acquisition discussion. When we visited Peoplesoft a few days later, we took with us 2 large boxes of documents to Peoplesoft, and in those boxes were all the documents needed for due diligence. And so it was possible, just through those documents alone, to do about 90% of the due diligence. There were 5 years of audited accounts. There were a vast number of agreements prepared by a large legal firm in Atlanta. There were lists of customers with contact names and phone numbers. There were lists of suppliers. There were lists of all the employees. There were also signed resignations from every one of our 30 staff and an agreement on what incentives it would take them to stay 12 months beyond the sale date. So the deal was actually done very quickly. The due diligence was obviously done very quickly. The product was already well established in the marketplace, so there was little they needed to do on product evaluation. And so even though the business was losing $1 million at that point in time and only had 6 months of cash left, we in fact negotiated to sell the business over a 2-week period for 6 times revenue, $12 million. Now, the lesson I think that we learned from this is that, again, value is in the eye of the beholder. Peoplesoft had a very large customer base that they could immediately sell the product back into, but also because these products were very rare, and none of the other major competitors had them. This immediately gave Peoplesoft a competitive advantage. So not only did it counter a threat from their competitors, but clearly it opened up a competitive advantage, and it would clearly open up vast new revenue, not only within their customer base, but clearly within their new prospects. The deal was done very quickly because we were superbly prepared for due diligence. We anticipated the problem of the key managers and key staff and had already negotiated an agreement for those who needed to leave and for those who needed to stay. We had the best legal and accounting service providers in Atlanta to help us prepare and negotiate the deal. The deal was done very quickly and obviously very successfully. So again, reflecting back on the journey and asking yourself, why did this occur, enables me to look at my experience and to build these breakthrough processes for selling a business that I have, which I've now documented in my books and in my videos.